The show. I am your host, Garrett O'Brien. And as you can see, I finally got my green screen working. Got a nice little backdrop finally. But, anyways, I kind of want to take some time to kind of explain my week a little bit because my week was a little rough and was able to, it's kind of funny that I'm doing a show on basing decisions off of emotion because this entire week I've been trying to avoid basing decisions off of emotion. And, it's one of those things that's really difficult to do because when you're in the moment, you just want to give up. You just want to, push away and get away and, not deal with anything. And having to make the conscious choice to actually pushing through and getting rid of, that toxic thinking of, I just want to give up. I just want to run away. I don't want to deal with this anymore. Leave me alone. I want to be by myself. I had a few of those instances this week. And it was pretty tough. It was pretty, weighing on myself. But you know what? I did push through. I didn't allow, those lies to bloom into something even more devastating, which I've done in the past. Hey, how's it going? Glad you can make it. Um, so, I really want to go into depth about talking about making decisions based on emotion because most of our decisions that we make on a day-to-day basis are based on emotion, whether we think about it or not. If it makes you feel happy, if it makes you feel angry, or something is said to you and you get angry, and then you basically cut that person out completely, and you're making a decision that could affect your entire life based on that one emotion. And I'm totally guilty of it. Before I met my second wife, I made decisions on emotion. Even while I was married to her, I made a lot of decisions just out of straight emotion. One of them was when I started my business for the first time. And I do a business, I do graphics and stuff like that. So, this isn't my only deal. I do about three other things. But when I first started my business, I realized that it was a lot more difficult than I had, thought it to be. So it got hard. I decided, I was getting angry, I was getting irritated, nothing was happening, so I gave up. I threw it out the window. I said, "Screw this! I'm done. I'm not going to deal with this anymore. It's just easier just to go away and run away." Well, I made that decision, based on the feeling of failing, the feeling of depression, not depression, but feeling of sadness, feeling of abandonment, feeling of, just, all those feelings. I'm kind of at a loss for words. You're going to notice I get a lot, I get a lot of loss for words. I can write, I can sit down and write a book. I can sit there and write a paper, and everything comes out, smooth and whatnot. But when my speech is one of those things that's really difficult for me to do because it just, I get this thought in my head and I just can't get it out. But anyways, back to what I was saying, making decisions off of emotions. I made those decisions to give up, basically because, I was getting angry, I was getting upset, and, it completely changed, my whole path from that point on. The reason why is because even though I just re-stood up my business, and I'm still working at it, even though it's still, hard, it's still difficult, but I'm looking at it completely different. You gotta, anything that you want, is going to be hard. Anything that you want is going to be difficult. It's a matter of if you can stick with it to get through those, the trenches and whatnot, to actually bring it together. And, had I not given up on that based on those emotions that I, made the decision on, my business could have been taken off by now. Just how many customers could I have helped? Would I even be where I'm at right now? And, I'm not, thinking about or trying to live in the past where, I've made bad decisions, but, I think about those things on a whole different level because, how many things did I miss? How many blessings did I miss because I made that one decision off of fear and anger? It's it's pretty interesting because I look back on a lot of the things that I've done, and a majority of the things, whether it was quitting jobs, you know, making a decision to, um, give up on something, or making an impulse decision on doing something else. It's all based on emotion, and I kind of want to go into detail a little bit on that because it's I got one of the notes here on my phone. Um, Keeps slipping my mind. I'm actually funny story is I'm actually memorizing lines right now for a Halloween play that we're doing, and it's not going so well. We go live on next week, and I'm already struggling. But hey, you know what? I'm gonna get through it. So basically, one of the things that when I say making decisions off emotion, when you get excited, it can cause you to overestimate your chances of success. And there's a reason why casinos, they actually employ bright lights and loud noises and stuff like that, because it gets you excited. It gets you in the moment to, all right, awesome, I'm gonna drop $20 here, I'm gonna drop $30 here, and before you know it, you drop $1,000 and you're already out. You know what I mean? And that's taking, using excitement for an example of putting you in a bad situation. When you feel really excited about something, you're more likely to underestimate the risk. Um, you get, a these feelings inside that you feel really good about something. You have an intuition about it, or you get these feelings in your stomach that I feel really good about this. You get your hopes up and all that stuff, and you decide to make a decision based on that feeling. It could put you in a very bad situation really quick. Same thing with a relationship. If you're in a relationship and you get a good feeling and you decide to jump the gun and have sex the first night or second night or first week, you're really jumping the gun to really understanding the other person on a different level. What do I mean by that? Well, when you have sex with somebody, that's like, it's one of the most intimate things that you can do with your partner is having sex. And the excitement that leads up to it and stuff like that, it's a really it's a tough feeling, because you just want to go ahead and do it, you just want to go ahead and cross that line. But making that decision could ultimately cause that relationship to turn around completely and just end right there. So I urge you, especially when it comes to relationships and stuff like that, I urge you to really sit down, maintain self-control, maintain self-awareness, and just understand that making a decision, a rash decision off of excitement, stuff like that, is not going to help that relationship at all. One of the anxieties in one area of your life spill into other areas. So like that excitement that you had for your partner and whatnot, can build anxiety, like, was I good enough for them, or is that person just gonna up and leave and stuff like that. I know females do feel this, but also males do too. When you have sex with a partner, it's really exciting, and you really like it, you get into it and whatnot, and then the anxiety comes back about a week later, or 2 weeks later, that is it, did I step over my bounds, and it's gonna keep building to the point to where you eventually make another decision to either leave before you get hurt, or stay in a relationship that isn't really right for you. And that's it's just one of those things. I can speak from experience on that I've done that a lot. Well, not a lot, but a good amount. Having sex with a partner way too soon, and before you know it, a week later, 2 weeks later, even a month later, the person is completely moved on, or you're sitting here with a different interpretation of the relationship, and the other partner's like, it's just whatever. And you got to be very careful making that decision, out of excitement. Because like I said, it does build anxiety and just spill over into other areas in your life. Um, feelings of sadness, depression, stuff like that cause you to settle. Um, I'm not saying, settling is a bad thing. However, making a decision out of sadness, or desperation or anything like that, could make you settle in a relationship that really isn't right for you. Could make you settle in a job that you're really unhappy in, and eventually can just drive you even further down the spiral. Um, Making that decision on, out of sadness on, moving somewhere and realizing, I screwed up. I can't make it on this. I'm without a home. I'm homeless now. Simple decisions like that can cause something like that, and it's really difficult because, I mean, the human mind, when it sees something, it wants something, and it's really hard to maintain self control and self respect to the point to where you see something, I can reach out and grab it. I grabbed it, awesome, I have it now. Now it's gone, and it's really difficult because that's just the human mind. We want what we want, and it's we don't want to wait, and that's the typical mind of today, unfortunately, and it's really difficult to get out of that mindset, and that's what I mean. Becoming self-aware and just really understanding who you are as a person, because that can really help you out from making decisions based on emotion. Like I said, I made a lot of decisions based on emotion. One of them was an argument that I had with a spouse. Um, you know, she said some things, I said some things, and then I said some hurtful things. Um, and saying those things, you can't take back what you just said. So that's why I say, be very careful when speaking from, while you're angry, or speaking while you're upset, or sad, or anything like that, because those words that come out, you can't take them back. Um, Even when you're sad and stuff like that, you can have forms of manipulation just to persuade the other person to come back, or whatnot. And you got to be very careful how you talk to somebody, especially when you're sad, angry, upset. I mean, even happy. You can say things that may offend people. And I know today is, it's really easy to offend people. And you know what? That's not you. It's just how they perceive what you're saying. And it's part of being self-aware. Um, I wasn't really self-aware until recently. I was always understanding, why is this happening to me? Why am I dealing with what I'm dealing with? And I just don't get why, all this stuff is happening. But, when you take yourself out of that perspective, and you look at all the decisions you made in your life, really take an inventory on every decision that you've made up to the point where you're at now, because that will explain exactly why you're where you're at. And it's pretty difficult to finally get to the point to where you're looking at things from a different perspective, or looking at things outside the box, because you've had this whole perception of how your life was and how you've been treated and whatnot, and you make the conscious decision to stop thinking that way. And it's hard, believe me. It took me, I'm 39 now. It took me 38 years to figure that out. And some people will never even figure that out, and that's the sad thing about it. So that's why I always say, when you're making a decision, you really need to learn to balance the emotion and the logic. What do I mean by balancing emotion and logic? Well, regardless of what decision you make, you're going to have emotion in there. But you also need to set the emotion aside and figure out if this, decision is going to be good for me, or in the long run, is it going to be bad for me? One of the decisions that I made that was out of emotion. Well, I decided to when I decided to move here, there was no emotion in that, because I was at a point where I'm tired of playing the same old game, playing the same old broken record, being in the hurt, being in the depression, stuff like that. And I made the decision. I thought about it. I just didn't jump on it, and that's one of the big differences of making a decision based on emotion versus logic, is that it's an impulse type of thing. Oh, I feel great about it, let's do it. Balancing the emotion and the logic is very important. Um, the thing is anxiety. Why you have anxiety, you can make bad decisions, poor choices, just out of boredom. It can ignite the spark that leads to you follow your passion, leads to you following your passion. And your passion could be something that is reachable, or it could be something that is completely out of reach. And that's one thing you have to sit down and really look at. Draw it out on a piece of paper. Like, you have you're here right now, you have your dream here, or you have your passion over here, or however you want to draw it out. You really got to look, connect those little pieces there, and just really look at the whole thing on paper, and sit there and think on it. Because I'm telling you, nothing bad comes from sitting and thinking. I mean, some people will disagree with that, but honestly, while you're sitting and thinking about it, you can actually run different scenarios off in your mind to where this is actually possible, or this is basically a fluke and it's never going to work. You need to learn to acknowledge your emotions. When you're angry, physically say, I'm angry right now. What is making me angry? You need to ask yourself questions. When you get in these emotions and stuff like that, why am I angry? What is causing me to be angry? And then really, take an inventory on the things that cause you to be angry. And then you start, asking your questions. Eventually you start asking questions like, why am I getting mad at this? Is it really that important? That's actually something I do in traffic now, believe it or not. I mean, I lived in LA for a few years, and, I grew up in Southern California. So traffic was definitely a feat to overcome. Just LA traffic alone. And I know some of you guys are from California, that are watching, know what I'm talking about, especially, being in Long Beach and whatnot, because I went to Long Beach a lot. And traffic, the LA traffic, it's another thing. But before I go off onto a tangent with that, that was one of the things that I said I recently learned about. While I'm in traffic, you have people cutting you off and slowing down, and basically taking your front end off. One thing I had to do was learn to take myself out of that equation. And you're going to hear me say that a lot in all my shows, because that is one of, obviously it's important. Taking yourself out of the equation, seeing through somebody else's eyes. And, that person that cuts you off, you got to think about, what is that person going through to make that decision to cut you off? What, are they, rushing to a hospital? Are they rushing home because somebody's sick? Are they rushing home because something happened? Or are they just doing it to do it? They may not even see you there and just be completely oblivious and just make that decision to cut over and cut you off. And that second, that anger, erupts within you. That irritation erupts within you because you had a bad day, and all of a sudden you're making a bad decision to follow that person, to get on their butt, ride them, stuff like that. And eventually, it can lead to an accident. It can lead to an incident. It can lead to jail. It can lead to wherever it goes. And, that's one decision based off emotion, and that's one of the things that, like I said, I changed about myself, is really taking myself out of the equation as, do I really need to get where I'm going so fast to where it causes problems for somebody else? And these flies are not my friend, let me tell you. So, it's acknowledging your emotions, asking yourself questions. It never hurts. Always ask yourself the question is, why am I feeling this way? What caused me to feel this way? What else can I do to avoid these kind of feelings? So, learning who you are and how you respond is very important to do. Don't ever not grow, if that makes sense. Um, you know, Learn about yourself every day that you can. Learn about yourself so that way you can better understand other people as well. Because once you learn about yourself, who you are, what you need, what you want, stuff like that, you can really understand. You can start to pay attention to things around you and start to focus on others rather than focusing on yourself. And I know that kind of sounds like it's contradicting in a way, but it learning about yourself is a good thing because you will know, like the decisions you make are based off of, these feelings and stuff like that. So you can learn to avoid, negative feelings as well. Let's see. One other point, I got about 9 minutes left, but one other point I want to talk about is anger and embarrassment. Um, can lead to taking a bad deal. And intense emotions. Anger is a very intense emotion. Um, you know, I'm sure you all have heard of somebody saying something about healthy anger and stuff like that. There is healthy anger. I mean, after all, God did give us this emotion, give us this feeling to feel. It's kind of a defense mechanism. It's kind of one of those ones that helps you fight off, threats to you and stuff like that. And, anger can be used in a good way. And, how do I mean by that? Anger can be used as a way to sit back, acknowledge that you're angry. Why am I angry? And help identify the situation a little bit better. So that maybe you can avoid that anger, later on or in the long run or whatnot. But using anger and embarrassment, well, embarrassment follows from anger. Like I said, they're intense emotions that cause rash decisions. They can make you very, very vulnerable, and they are very high risk. What do I mean as far as vulnerable? Well, being vulnerable can mean a bunch of different things. Vulnerable, the way I'm talking about it, as far as making decisions as in anger emotion. It could end you up in jail. It's just one of those things that there's a fine line between healthy and bad anger. For example, let's say you're in court for something, a traffic ticket or anything like that, and the judge says something you don't like. You respond with a smart aleck remark, and before you know it, you're in cuffs, you're going to jail, stuff like that. That's what I mean by making a decision out of anger. It can happen just like that, and you got to be very careful with allowing yourself to be angry at certain things. And you notice how I said allow yourself, because basically, the emotions, they come in, you make the conscious, well, it could be conscious, could be subconscious, just have, nature versus nurture and whatnot. And, just by what you've learned, it could make a conscious choice to say punch that person that said something to you, or attempt suicide because you're just had enough of everything. Those are permanent decisions off of temporary feelings. And like I said, all emotions are temporary. It's not, even happy is an emotion. Happy is not a state of mind, it's an emotion. And doing things out of happiness can put you in a bad situation as well. And I mean, you really got to learn self-awareness, self-control, and you really need to look at things from other people's eyes because, like I said, when we focus on ourselves 100%, we don't care what anybody else wants. When we focus on ourselves, that's when bad decisions start happening. That's when bad things start happening. That's when people start pushing away from you because they don't want somebody who's going to focus on themselves all the time. And it's damaging to not only yourself, but it's also damaging to the other person because the other person is seeing somebody in a self-destructive manner, completely destroying themselves, and it's devastating. How do I know? Because I've done it. I've isolated. I've hid from society. I've completely discounted things that people have done for me, and I'm guilty of a lot of things, a lot of bad things, and it's bad emotions, bad language, stuff like that. That this is everything that I've dealt with in my life that has brought me to where I'm at today. And I mean, you're not alone when it comes to bad decisions or emotions or anything like that. Everyone is going through something, whether you see it or not. Some people can mask it easier than others. Some people can't. I happen to be one of those people that can't. It's all over my face when something's wrong, or I'm upset or in depression or anything like that. It's just who I am. And like I said, it's very important to learn who you are, learn the details about yourself to identify, how you actually make decisions. And, making decisions, making decisions out of emotion is something that you got to be very careful about doing because it can either, it could lead to good things, but it could also very likely lead to bad things because, like I said, emotions are temporary. They're not permanent. It's not a state of mind. It's an emotion. You make the choice. So, just be very careful when it comes to, making decisions out of emotion. I got about 3 minutes left. If you guys have any questions, go ahead and, spout them on chat if you like. I'll read them. I'll answer them, with whatever time I got left. But, I'm just going to sit here and talk to y'all because, that's why I started my show is to, talk to everyone else and help other people as best I can. And, I actually, to be honest with you, I have to be 100% honest with you. I like being transparent because, it's real. It's being real with everyone. And, I almost stopped doing this show a few weeks back because, I just, I was depressed, I just, I got to a point to where, it's not going to go anywhere. I'm not helping anybody else. But then I sat down and I really looked at just the little things that I've been doing through the show and just kind of going back to my own shows and re-listening to, stuff that I was saying and just, it picked myself up, like I said, basing decisions off of emotion versus logic and, learning to balance out those, emotion and logic, balance them together. And, I was just, I was at a point where I was ready to give up. And, I sat down, I thought about it. I didn't make that rash decisions like I used to. I sat down, I drew it out on the table and I looked at it and I said, you know what, it's not about what I'm feeling. It's about other people. And that's where you really need to look at, it's not about me. It's about everyone else. So, if you guys don't have any questions, I just want to thank you guys for joining me today. If you have any questions after the fact, you can reach me on Instagram, which is right down below. I also have a Facebook page for Rewired the Show. So go ahead and please, follow that and share it. And, same thing, share all my messages on Instagram as well. And also I have a Twitter. You can hit me up on Twitter, follow me on Twitter. At Rewired the Show. Same thing for Facebook at Rewired the Show. And you know, get these words out there, because you know there's a lot of people who need to hear this, and there's a lot of people, you know, who will say that I'm, you know, what I'm saying is not true. But you know what? There's always going to be someone that's trying to bring you down. Don't let them bring you down, because you are who you are. You just got to be yourself. All right. Love yourself. Love you guys. I appreciate you guys coming and hanging out. And I will be on next week at 6 p.m. All right. Love you guys.